The Gauteng High Court in Pretoria is hearing the cross-examination of the state's key witness in the corruption trial of former Speaker of the National Assembly, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula. Now, Mapisa-Nqakula is facing 12 charges of corruption, one of money laundering. The state alleges that she solicited 4.5 million rand in bribes from a contractor during her time as Defence Minister. Now, the contractor, Nombasa Ntsondwa-Ndhlovu, a previous co-accused turned state witness, was in the hot seat yesterday as Mapisa-Nqakula's defence grilled her on inconsistencies in her statement and a lack of critical detail. Ntsondwa-Ndhlovu returns to the witness stand today. To look at the case, we are now joined by a defence analyst at DefenceWeb, Ricardo Teixeira. Ricardo, good to have you. Thanks very, very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's perhaps maybe begin with a little bit of an explanation before we look at yesterday's testimony. What is the state actually required to prove here?
Well, they need to prove that, in fact, that there was corruption, of course, that there was a coordinated effort between the two and for the former minister to try and, beyond a reasonable doubt, that she did solicit bribes and she did solicit funds out of the contractor on the tender. Furthermore, the conspiracy that perhaps these tenders were awarded because of the intention to get bribes out of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's something really important that is actually resting on the state's case here, because we look at a key witness now, and this witness that we have, the state witness, Nombasa Ntsondwa-Ndhlovu, he admitted the alleged 2 million rand promotion bribe demand from her initial statements. What happened here?
Well, it seems that, yeah, there was a long-running relationship between the two, where, as tenders were awarded, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula was receiving funds, and that they were communicating consistently over WhatsApp and using code language, phrases that were familiar to Sangomas, and that, yeah, it seems that the relationship went on for quite some time. This was not a once-off bribe. This was something that carried on over a while, over several tenders, and it seems to be something that is, to a sense, started peeling back the layers of dirt that is hidden behind the carpet at the Department of Defence.
How seriously should the court view this, and how damaging can this actually be?
I think it's the beginning of what could be quite a bit of accountability at the Department of Defence. I mean, Nosiviwe's tenure, she oversaw the period over the Department of Defence at SANDF where things really began to decline. Previously, under the previous minister, Lindiwe Sisulu, that's when the 2015 Defence Review was commissioned, but it was published under Nosiviwe, and it was under her watch where nothing really happened. The budget began to decline past a point where capabilities started being lost. And she really is one of the longest-serving defence ministers in our democratic era, but her tenure is not really marked with much successes. It's marked with the time where, again, the budget started decreasing to an unsustainable level, and she really did not steer the ship much in any way. She was more of a caretaker of a department that was being ignored, but also at the same time clearly being used as an avenue for corruption.
I mean, the fact, and it is, I mean, the witness admitted that she didn't tell Bantu Holomisa about the single largest alleged demand, and that's that 2 million rand bribe that we're talking about. How does this affect her credibility as a Section 204 indemnity witness?
Well, look, I'm not a legal analyst, but I think if you are keeping certain what appear to be very, very crucial details, if you seem to be only bringing them out later and not from the beginning, it damages the credibility of the witness. We saw she had a very difficult time on the stand yesterday, a lot of inconsistencies in her statement, why certain details were only brought up later and not in the initial affidavit and in interviews. Again, this is a case that there's a lot of pressure on this case. There's a lot riding on this. And I think that not just for the former minister, but also for overall the ANC and the credibility of the department, and also of the witness. So for these discrepancies to be occurring at this point in the case does not bode much confidence.
Yeah, I suppose it doesn't. And also, you know, the witness goes on to testify that she paid the bribes simply to avoid ruining her relationship with the minister. I mean, that's what she's been saying. How strong is the defence's counter-argument that Mapisa-Nqakula had no seat on procurement boards to actually influence tenders?
I mean, that still needs to be proven that she didn't have a say. I mean, she was the minister for quite some time. She had quite a bit of power within the department. So to say that she had no control whatsoever, I think is unlikely. I think she did have quite a bit of control, considering the way the department is run. And I think that is something that separately should be looked into, is how ministers have influence over these sorts of things, because I don't think that she was the first minister to have a say over or to have any attempts of corruption over her time there. I think that if we look at the Madlanga Commission and the amount of dirt that's come out and what has truly been happening behind the scenes at the SAPS, I think that if we get to a point where we start looking into the SANDF, I don't think that South Africa is ready for the amount of skeletons that are going to fall out of that closet.
Yeah, now there's an interesting point that you've brought up, because, I mean, as we say, you know, these are things that, and I do say hopefully, will come to light, because, you know, if it carries on like this, there's going to be huge problems. And already, as you say, this is just, we're starting to see what's actually going on behind the scenes. I just want to get back to this, because the High Court had previously denied her full access to the investigative diary, that's the Section C, and military files. Does this bit of restriction significantly hinder her team's ability to pick apart the state's investigation?
I think so, but I think it's also partly that the evidence is being protected to some extent, because there may be something else in there that the prosecution hasn't put forward yet. But I think that, it does hinder her to some extent, because she doesn't have access to everything that the state has access to. But ultimately, I think she's got bigger things to worry about. I mean, she's facing 12 charges, and this case is going to go on for quite a while, and she's got some serious charges against her. And I think we are far from seeing the end of this.
And you know, one of the other issues is that we see the involvement from the public in many of these. I mean, we'll just put something like, even though it is different, but the Madlanga Commission, people are hanging on to every word. They are seeing things unravel before them and putting pieces together. This, however, the court has ruled that while the media can report on the trial, as we're speaking about it right now, they're banned from filming or broadcasting the state's witnesses. How would you believe that this affects public transparency for such a high-profile political figure and such an important aspect where you yourself have just said this is just the tip of the iceberg of what's actually going on in the SANDF?
Look, there is a larger practice within the SANDF to classify anything they can, because they can classify everything they want. We've seen, I mean, last week at the Defence Industry Lekgotla on, I think it was the second opening day, when the chaplain opened up with prayer, the prayer slide on the back wall had a restricted label on it. The DOD and the SANDF really do like to classify anything that they possibly can. And I think to some extent it's to avoid any kind of embarrassment and scrutiny, but I think also it hinders accountability and transparency. And I think that we do, as a public, deserve a lot more transparency as to what exactly is going on within the Defence Force.
Absolutely. This is our money. This is tax money, and that's something that people deserve to know what is going on. And these are large amounts of money we're talking about. Just before I let you go, because we are sort of about to run into time constraints, the specific indemnity agreements or deals that has been offered, or the prosecution has offered the witness in exchange for her testimony against Mapisa-Nqakula. What are we looking at? Do you know these things?
Not really. I haven't been too clued up on that, and I think that to some extent that this is still very much between the court and the actors within the court. But I think there's a lot of things that we're still going to see coming out of this, and I think that Nosiviwe herself knows quite a bit more than what has come out in court. And I think that if she's put in a situation where she's going to have to start giving some more evidence to the court and having to herself possibly become a state's witness, I think that's when we're going to see all of this start unraveling a lot faster.
Yeah, certainly. And also there's a lot, wigs, patkos, all of these kind of things that we need to get to the bottom of, because there's a lot going on here. But I'm so glad that you came in to chat to us about it. Ricardo Teixeira is a defence analyst at DefenceWeb, unpacking former Speaker of the National Assembly and former Defence Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula's corruption and money laundering case. And as you heard Ricardo saying, this is really just the opening of what we're about to see that's actually happening behind the scenes at the SANDF. So that's a very important comment to look at.